Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is the BS Buddies podcast. I am your host, Ian, and this is my other host, Joe, who's currently sick, so he's having me do the intro so as not to strain his voice.
Yeah, if you can as you'll probably see throughout this episode, and I'm sure it's going to get worse as we go. I've been sick for a few days. My voice is come and gone, and we'll see. We'll see what happens.
He's going to be at a whisper by the time we get to the end of it.
Probably.
Woo.
So,
Thirsty.
uh, we are gonna talk about car stories. I got one pretty interesting one in mind, and Ian said he's got a couple, so we'll see where this.
So, one of the first ones that comes to mind for me was I was helping a buddy when I was still in the service out west. He had a 1967 Ford Mustang. It was an automatic, and it was a beautiful freaking car, flat black, had the drum brakes and all that. And he invited me along one day to help him fix it, replace the brakes, because um, there's a place you can go to on base where you can rent a stall and get tools and work on your vehicle. So we went out there to go replace the brakes. Now he had already ordered the brakes and had them show up. All but one set had arrived. So we get out there and we get into the bay and we start working. And we started working on the front passenger side tire. That's important. The front passenger side tire.
Got it.
And I don't know if you've ever taken apart drum brakes, but it's a bit of a pain because it's unlike disc brakes where the disc spins in the middle and your two pads clamp onto it and that's how it slows the tire down. Drum brakes it is a round circle of the steel and you have pads that set inside through a series of springs push against that spinning disc that the tire is mounted to, and that's how it slows it down. And
Dude,
to do that,
I'm
you
lucky I
have to
know how
have
to
these
open my car door.
you need to have these pistons that supply the brake, pressure, whatever. Well, the problem is his were old and they were stuck on there. And so he sort of beat the crap out of it, getting it
As
off
you
of the
should.
tire. Like he destroyed it. And as he's telling me to reach in and hand him the new piston to put on there, they are directionally oriented, meaning that the passenger side one branches off into a Y in a certain way, and the driver's side branches off into a Y in a certain way. You cannot interchange them. That's the important part here. He asked me to reach inside and find it for him. I go, pull one up. Okay. That's the driver's side. Okay. That's a rear one. That's a rear one. There's no more brake pistons in here, man. And he looks back and he goes, what? No, 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 it's in there. And I go, this was the only one that's in there. And he's like, yeah, that's the one I need. And he grabs it and he looks at it and he's like, this is the driver's side. And we look at the box and we look at the tire and we have just realized, oh, cool, we've now made this car inoperable until he gets the piston that he needs to put
Oh
in there.
my.
So we had to go in and talk to the people in the shop and be like, we kind of have to leave the car here overnight, which they do not like having people do. They're like, no, you got to take it. And we're like, it has no brakes. It cannot go anywhere. Like, we can't put this thing back together. You don't understand. And then we had to call AutoZone and have them express order one in so we could pick it up the next morning and go back and replace it.
It's funny you say that. I had a dream the other night, like my car like completely broke down and my brakes like were non-existent anymore. I guess
What
I was
happened?
just I don't really remember. I woke up before I got home in this car with no brakes. Like everything was flashing on the inside in the stream. Like
The
all the
entire
lights
instrument
were.
panel was lighting up. The whole
Oh,
car was just like, nope, I'm done. I'm calling it quits here. Oh, that sounds like I had to change the brakes on the Wildcat when we were out in Tennessee. And yeah, they were eating through the pad. Like they were eating halfway through the pad.
thank you.
That's a fun little spin-off edition just for you there. That was a fun time having to go down to the little shop and buy off-brand brakes and slapping them on there.
So I got one car story, unless there was more to the no
Oh,
brakes,
oh
all
no. I mean,
gas,
yeah.
no
Eventually, we went
brakes.
back. We got everything thrown together, and then we went out for cruising. But it was just kind of one of those things that in the moment was funny because he was like, "Dude, hand me the piston." I'm like, "Dude, this not in here." And he's like, "Bullshit." And like we were picking up, and we were sitting there looking at the one that he had just hammered the hell out of because he had to try and get it to compress to reduce pressure so he could pop the thing free, and it wasn't compressing, so he was just putting a rod in there and taking a hammer and smacking the shit out of it. Like the thing was all dented to pieces, it bent way out of shape. Like this thing was looked like a chunk of scrap metal. We're looking at it like, why didn't we check the box? Like why did we just yank this off and go to town on it? And oh, he was so angry when he was beating the shit out of it. And then when he found out that he shouldn't have beat the shit out of it, then he was really pissed. And then he beat the shit out of it more because he'd already beat the shit out of it. Oh,
A never-ending cycle.
yep. It's a vicious cycle. It really is. It lends to itself, you know.
So my story happened a year and a half ago, I think. So I have my fiance has a good friend who lives down in Missouri. I mean, now I've known him for 3 years, but I kind of knew him. I think I met him I guess I met him one time. I don't know if I met him in person before this. I think I did. Anyway, not important. Um, he was originally from central Minnesota, where Debbie and I grew up. And speaking of Debbie, hello. She just walked in the room. Um, and he texted me and one of my buddies. He's like, "Hey, um, like some, I was gonna have someone pick up a vehicle back home for me, but um, they backed out or he had to work. Something happened, and so he was really upset. It was an old Fox body Mustang,
Ooh.
and he's like, yeah, it was my dad's racing car back in the day. Like, it means a lot to me. And
Oh.
we were talking in Discord, and me and my buddy are like, well, we'll go get it. He's like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, sure. Why not?
Yeah, why not?
What could go wrong? That's
Oh no.
um so me and my buddy lived in Fargo at this time, and we drove an hour to his dad's place to pick up his trailer, hook the trailer, um, drove 2 hours to said location. And we had a big trailer, and it was at his relative's house. I'm trying to not give it as much information as possible.
Be anonymous.
And it was like a dirt driveway, like could barely fit a car.
Oh
And
no.
we had to back we pulled in normally. And then we saw it. At first, I didn't see it. It was like behind trees. It's rusted out. I think there's like a small
Oh, it's in
tree.
it's in just mint condition,
Oh,
right? Just
just you wait.
looking minty.
You can go in front of the light if you want. I have my lights positioned so poorly in here. Are you good?
I'm
Okay.
happy that my lighting is as well as it is. I'm
Okay.
just running off two lamps with lampshades. One there, one there.
Um. So we're like, how are we gonna get this out? Um. And it was behind. I don't even know exactly how to describe it. I don't remember if I took a picture. But we got the key from his relative who had it on their property, and my buddy's like, "Hey, why don't you go in, try and turn the wheel?" Well, when I should back up a little bit. We went to go try and push it, and it was like 6 inches in mud.
Oh, nice. So that thing is buried.
So yeah, it's buried. Um, someone, I think someone came over to visit the relative, and it was an older couple, and he's just watching us like kind of cut these small trees down to try and make a path. And he's like, "Do you guys need some help?" And we're like, "Yes, we would love some help." So he's like, "Okay, I'll go get a come along." So goes in his truck and grabs one, and then my buddy said, "Hey, uh, go go in the car and turn the wheel so we can at least get it angled because it was not centered with the trailer. There, it was like pointed. There was like a small shed, and it was like pointed more towards the shed than it was to the driveway.
So even if you got it out, it wasn't going to head right for the trailer.
Yeah, like it was gonna go straight through a shed if we
Nice.
pulled it out straight. So my buddy's like, "Hey, go in the car and turn the wheel." It's like, "Okay." So I get in, I step in, and my foot goes through the floor.
Oh no.
And I'm like, "Oh
Oh.
my." And then I'm turning this wheel and it's not going. Like it's not budging. It's not like I can like kind of shimmy it to like get it through the
It's
mud. It's locked. The wheel
oh.
is locked, and I think I tried the key and it I don't I don't know if we had the right key. I can't remember. This was a while ago and so much happened that day that I don't
This
even
car sounds like it doesn't even run.
um anyways. So we had to do the come along around a random tree at an angle to pull it out to get it like kind of centered. And this dude helped us for like a couple hours just trying to get it near on the trailer.
To be able to get it in position to get it on the trailer.
Once we got it in position, he's like, "Okay, like we got to get going," and thanked him. Um and then start getting it on. Luckily, the trailer had a winch, so we were pulling it that way. So we didn't have to physically move it too much, but all the wheels were just dead flat.
Did the
And
tires even roll or were they locked up?
oh, they slid. um, and I remember going in that little shed and grabbing a 2x4 and like sticking it under the vehicle so we could like get it on the trailer. And also, when we pulled into the driveway, we pulled in vehicle first. My buddy had to back up, go out, back in the trailer through that tiny driveway to get it on. And as we're getting it on, like the tires are like, there's one tire that's almost coming off the trailer, and I'm like, "Oh, this is
Ah,
nerve wracking."
it'll
Luck,
ride. It'll
luckily,
ride.
luckily it didn't um,
Flip
slide
off.
off or anything. But we tried calling my buddy when we got there, like, "Hey, like how bad do you want this?" And he's like, "Really, really bad." Like, okay. So we drive the 2 hours back and drop it off. And I think it was my buddy's dad. He holds on to car vehicles over the winter time, and they're like, "We'll just charge the normal holding fee or whatever." And then my buddy was gonna pick it up whenever. So then we drive the hour back to Fargo, and so I thought it was gonna be like a 3 or 4 hour job. It was a 7 to 9 hour job.
Nice. That's one of them
Um,
days you get back and it's just like, you want to go to the bar? Yeah. Yeah.
and my buddy, when he eventually went back up to the area, he's like, "Yeah, looking at it, should have told you guys to not even bother."
Damn.
Yeah.
Ooh.
He's like, "Yeah, that
Ooh.
was too far gone." but
What a steal.
I he's a good friend
Uh,
and figured try and help him out. And I know he listens to the podcast, so Nathan, you better appreciate this.
oh man. Good times all around.
But
What went through
that's
that?
about it.
Sounds like a lot of the vehicles that sit around my parents' place right now. My parents' place got a lot of empty cars that, yeah, you'd probably get in them and seat would fall through the floor. Oh, I got one. You want to hear about convoys when I was in the military?
Oh boy.
And
We
doing
were at
those? Boy, you want to know what a fun time in a car is? You ain't never appreciated nothing till you've been in a Humvee that weighs about several, I don't even know how much it weighs, 8 tons? You up armored ones? 7, 8 tons, something like that? In a 184 horse motor. Pretty sure it's like a V8, if that. And you're going about 25 miles an hour uphill, middle of summer, with the heaters going full blast just so you can keep the engine from overheating. Trying to make it through the mountain ranges so you can go out to the desert and play around in the sand for a week. Oh, we used to, so those, the Humvees that we had have been in use since like Desert Storm. I swear to God.
so a
We had
while.
one time, oh yeah. So the route that we would take from Camp Pendleton, which is on the coastline of California, to 29 Palms, which is a ways inland. It's in the desert of California. It's a couple hours convoy to get there, and you got to go through the mountains. And you these trucks start off doing great. You're on the highway, you're rolling like 55, everything's shaking, feels like the death rattle's about to take you out, but it's all right. You're like, all right, truck's holding together, we'll be okay. And then you make it from the flat plains into the first stages of the foothills, and you start slowing down. You're like, all right, we're still moving forward at a good clip. And then you get into the mountains themselves where you're sitting at like a fucking 20% grade, like a solid 15 minutes just in first gear because that's all the faster that thing is going to go. Because oftentimes you can see the tires on them starting to cone in from the weight. And there was one time I was driving, we were making a curve or between two peaks. So the road was at a incline. And as we came around this curve, see the doors that they have on these trucks are like a solid inch and a half thick plate of armor. And they weigh a fair amount. But
Yeah, as they should.
the latch is like a latch you would see on a fucking screen door. I swear, it is the flimsiest piece of garbage, and they will wear out. The springs in them will wear out, so the latch doesn't really catch anymore. And we were going around this curve at an incline, and we hear and you feel the whole truck rock to the right, and we look back, and the rear door has swung open and is bouncing, almost hitting the guardrail as we're going through, and it's like, shit. It takes like 2 or 3 grown men in full gear pulling on this heavy-ass door to try and shut it again, going around this curve, and we had to slow down once we got on flat ground just to make sure it was going to stay latched. And yeah, you have to keep the heaters in the trucks going full blast, otherwise the engine will overheat. So you have the windows all open. It's quite an experience, let me tell you. I appreciate AC every day of the week. That is a luxury that some people do not know.
You got any other stories or
You know, off the top of my head, I really don't. I can't think of anything. Um,
I think you
Although the
got
one
it.
time I went spinning backwards in the middle of winter, I was really, really young. I don't know why this just popped into my head. I was riding in the truck with my dad, and we hit a windy spot where it was really flat on black ice. And yeah, just driving down the highway, and then whee, we were spinning in circles. That was something. That's all I really remember. I know we went into the ditch backwards, and then we had to click on four-wheel drive, and we just kind of drove up and out. But yeah, we were
So
spinning for a
that
little bit there.
that made me think of one story I had with you. Um, we were going to my parents' place in high school. I think after basketball, something like that, to go hang
Probably.
out, and we were coming up on the last turn to my parents' place, and Ian's like, "Should I drift this corner?" And I'm like, I don't even know if I responded, or I'm like, "You
You
can."
know,
Do you remember this?
uh,
Um,
there's bits and pieces of it that's
but
coming back to me.
he drifted, and it was a good drift, but like half of his car went into their neighbor's lawn and just skidded.
Oh, I do remember that.
Luck-
'Cause I was
Luckily,
like,
small
"Oop."
town and like everyone's friendly. So
Is that when I had my Jeep?
yep.
I was a menace with that thing. I don't know who let me get a driver's license, but terrible decision on their part, really. I was a menace. I remember one time I was going around the school parking lot, and I was doing it was like it was wintertime, it's slippery. It's real easy to drift when it's slippery, and I came around the corner and you hit the gas just a little too hard, and next thing I know, I was pointed in parallel with the parking spots going straight sideways down the school parking lot. And it was like, "Ooh, shit!" And I managed to straighten it back out. And
Oh,
I think my cousin was in the car with me. He's like, "Oh man, that was cool." And I was like, "Ah, yeah, really cool." And I was like, "Don't let him know you definitely did not have that under control."
I guess I have one
Oh,
more that you brought that up. I drove an '02 Dodge Neon for that was my first car, and towards the end of its life, driving through Fargo in the winter, it's going a little too fast. Then the light turned red, so I slammed on my brakes. My car didn't slow down.
oh no,
Luckily, I
you
didn't
just
like
you just skidded.
fishtail. I just went straight through, just glided right on through.
Oh man, that's always the best. Because you're sitting there the
But
whole time, you're like, "There's nothing I can do." Like I'm
yeah,
just going.
that was scary though. If there was
I had
someone in front of me, that would have been very bad.
I had the same but opposite happened to me once during the middle of winter. I pulled up to the four-way stop in the middle of town, and I was like waiting in line. And as I came forward, I knew I was going to have to stop because I was going to have to wait for the cross traffic. And the second I stopped, I was like, "Oh no, I'm going to have a hard time." Sure enough, when it's my turn to go, I step on the gas and I just spin. And all I can do is sit there and rev, creeping forward like an inch a minute. And I'm like, "Yep, thanks for waiting, everyone. We'll get there eventually." I'm just going to sit here and keep on spinning.
Debbie caught my attention because I can't believe I forgot this car story. I didn't think I had so many. Um, it was a month after we moved. Um, we had drop offs with my future stepdaughter back and forth between mom and dad. We were coming back through the cities. Um, it was September 11th, and this is key to the story. We get on I 94 to go back to Wisconsin, and we're in stop and go traffic all of a sudden. You look on the other two lanes across, and there's no one there at all, not a single person.
Not one.
And then you look up on the bridge, and there's just a flock of people. So many people with posters like saying honk your horns, like a lot of Trump signs. And I'm like, what is going on?
What is happening?
And then in the distance, I see like fire trucks coming. And I realized they're doing a parade on an interstate, closing off 2 lanes of traffic. And like, I'm distracted by everyone up there,
Everyone
fire
up.
trucks. Um, I noticed that the people in front of me slammed on their brakes. I slam on my brakes, and person behind me, boom, hits
Oh,
hits us.
rear-ended.
Yep,
Fender bender?
yep. My trunk was destroyed, pretty much.
Smoosh. So a little bit
Um,
more than a fender bender.
so got out and talked it through. We were both okay, but um, luckily there were police in the parade, so they just pulled on over, came over to us, and asked if we were all right, and we said yeah. But as soon as we got cleared, I started driving away, and I just started feeling worse and worse. And I'm like, oh no, that was just adrenaline. Like now I'm feeling gross.
Yep.
So Debbie and I both had whiplash. We got checked out at the hospital, like to make sure we were all right. No fractures, thank God. Um, and then my car was getting fixed, so they got a rented car for me, and the I think I set up my appointment around my birthday because my family was coming up to hang out. So I'm like, if I have any problems, like I can just have a family member pick me up. Well, funnily enough, went to go pick up my car on my birthday. I set it up that way. My license expired, so they
Oh.
couldn't rent me a car.
Oh.
And I had just moved, so I still had Minnesota license. So I'm like, well,
Ooh.
what do I do? And they're like, well, tomorrow morning you can go get your license and get a
You're like,
car
oh,
tomorrow
thanks.
morning. I'm like, oh, great. Luckily, my sister was like a half hour away, so I just waited for her to get there, and I got my license the next morning. My Wisconsin license.
Wisconsin.
So yeah, that
Cheesehead
was just
land.
unfortunate timing.
Oof. Oof. Sometimes it just never works out in your favor.
Yeah, that was a rough year last year, but now we're here.
I swear. I'm just getting plagued by repeated car troubles. Like my timing belt fiasco that I got going on right now. Oh, it's always fun. It's not going well. I won't get into it. It's just not going well. My hands hurt. I smacked them yesterday.
Well,
Quite angry.
should we do quotes and wrap it up?
I would say so, yes. This sounds like a good place before I start thinking about my car and getting angry.
Well, I'll make you happy with my quote. Got another baseball quote for you.
All
I can't
right.
remember the player's name. They referred to him as Boss. Boss played in the early 1900s. You know what he did to impress women?
Hmm.
He hammered nails into floorboards with his bare hands
What?
to impress women.
Jesus, how hard was this dude's
He
hands?
he fought a bear for $500.
$500?
In the
Oh my
World
God.
Series, he was a catcher and he played with a broken hand.
Good Lord,
And
this man is a
his
beast.
and one of his passions when it wasn't baseball, it was fighting. So there's a quote from Boss. I forgot to save his name, but his nickname is Boss. And the quote is, I like to do just four things: play ball, fight, hunt, and eat. Boxing is all right for a little amusement when it's too cold to play ball.
What a man. What a G. What a homie.
He had an argument, or one of his teammates, if you guys know baseball, famous baseball players, he fought Ty Cobb, he's referred as one of the greatest ball players of all time. Ty Cobb was like picking on one of the workers, so Boss fought him and said knock it off, and they became pretty good friends
Give him
after.
a couple of good knuckle sandwiches right to the face.
Pretty much. But
Nice.
that's my quote from Boss.
That's what I'm talking about. Well, there we go. And I've got mine, which is a lot less profound than that. is by Bob Hope. A bank is a place that will lend you money if you can prove to them that you don't need it.
Solid.
I figured that one would just fit in. I don't know. I looked up funny quotes, and that was the one that I came across that I liked.
Do you remember the outro?
Oh, I don't know. Oh no.
Oh boy. Well, I'll just do it and
You've got this.
well, thank you for BSing with us.
That's right.
Sub-
You gotta talk
Subscribe.
to me about these things beforehand.
Yeah, I
You
probably
know, my
should. I
mind
think
is like a
I texted you it, didn't I? Like a couple weeks ago. Anyways, follow and subscribe if you want to become a bud today. Comment down below if you have a topic you want us to talk about. And we'll see you next time when I can actually speak. Maybe. Unless we record a second episode while I'm still sick. We'll see.
Reesh.
Thanks for hanging out with us.
Take her easy now.